Hello, if everyone can please make their way to their seats, we'll be starting momentarily. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Jerome, and I'm the current president of the Finance Club. I would like to welcome you to Invest in Your Future with George Pereira and Russell Martin. We'd now like to welcome them to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm a current junior majoring in business administration with a concentration in finance, pursuing a career in wealth management. I stand here in front of you all, breaking the stereotypical norm, showing that women can be a part of the business industry with lots of determination and resilience. We are progressing as a society, but we still need more diversity in business. I encourage everyone to be that voice and allow inclusivity everywhere you are, because this will progress us as a community. We are very honored to have great speakers with us this evening, and we hope that you can all take a lot of great insights away from our evening tonight. On behalf of the Finance Club, I would like to say a few thank yous before our event begins. I'd like to first say thank you to Mary Beth Stack, our Career Service Manager, Vanessa Gutierrez, SEBA staff, Young Jae Lee, SEBA Interim Dean, Kirk Knapp, a Finance Professor, Larissa Jenin, our Associate Dean, Mary Alice, our BizAd Director, and Dr. Souza, our Financial Club Staff Advisor, for helping the Finance Club organize this event over the past several weeks. Your help was much appreciated. Now let's get this evening started. I would now like to introduce Young Jae Lee.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I see a lot of familiar faces, and some of you were spending more than 2 weeks in Korea with me in January. And I want to thank Russell and George to spend your valuable evening with us for our students. And I want to thank Larry, Susan, and Kirk, Larissa, and Mary Beth, and Vanessa, and then all the Finance Club students. I want to mention that St. Mary's College is known for, we are a small school in Moraga. Some people think that, but we actually have a lot of innovation, both undergrad, graduate level. I want to share just a couple things that we do. For our finance program, we have advisory board, which informs us with a lot of new ideas about what to do. So one example is we are going to launch a FinTech certificate program. The plan is this fall. So if you want to learn something about fintech as a non-degree program, and that is a possibility here. And then we used to have actually Code in San Francisco, and now we are going back to San Francisco to open a Code next January. So that's another update. And school is strong, and because of all the dedication of faculty and students. So I want to say thank you to all of you, and I want to welcome at this point Mary Beth Stein.
Hello, I'm Mary Beth Stad. I'm the SEVA Career Services Manager. I certainly see a lot of familiar faces out here tonight, and I'm thrilled to see so many of you here. I know it'll be an exciting presentation and speech from George and Russell. They have so much to offer to our students here, so much to say about the industry and how you potentially could fit into it. So I'd like to welcome you to St. Mary's and thank everyone for coming tonight, especially Dr. Souza and the Finance Club for organizing this. You've proven that you're ready for the workforce putting on an event like this, and I'm so proud of you. Thanks so much.
Welcome everyone, thank you for coming tonight. I want to just take a quick 60 seconds and talk about one of our teams, student teams. There's the CFA Institute, which is the gold standard body. They are behind the CFA Charter, which is what securities analysts on Wall Street, portfolio managers, investment advisors, and so on have as a financial designation. Once a year they put on a research competition. 3 of our students, Marie Burnaby, Jacob Fatsis, Shrikar Panamaka, came in literally halfway through the competition, and they still ended up with one of the top presentations. So it just got finished. So let's give a quick round of applause to them. And lastly, I want to thank our guest speakers tonight. Russell was in one of my classes a number of years ago, and I learned a tremendous amount from him while teaching. So thank you.
Good evening, my name is Larissa Jenin, and I'm Associate Dean of the School of Economics and Business Administration. It is truly a delight to be with you tonight, and more importantly to welcome our distinguished group of presenters, and we are just fortunate to have them with us. School of Economics and Business Administration is not only known for providing very, very high-quality academic programs, but also we're very committed to student experience and success. And we are very focused on linking academic programs and academic majors that you are pursuing to meaningful personal and professional lives. To advance on this initiative of linking your degree programs to your meaningful personal and professional lives, we are fortunate to have a stellar group of students who are officers in the Finance Club under the leadership of Professor Larry Souza to put together tonight for all of you an amazing event, Invest in Your Future, discover the hidden opportunities within the finance sector. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce one of our speakers. And I'm delighted to introduce George Pereira, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Charles Schwab Investment Management. Pereira is responsible for administration, accounting, custody, treasury, performance reporting, and business technology organizations. Prior to his current role, Mr. Pereira spent 5 years leading the financial and regulatory reporting organizations for Charles Schwab Corporation, its bank, and its broker-dealer. Previous to Schwab, Mr. Pereira was CFO of Commerce Bank Capital Markets, U.S. broker-dealer subsidiary of Commerce Bank Germany in New York City. In addition, Mr. Pereira spent 10 years at the New York Stock Exchange in the Member Firm Regulation Division as a Managing Director, responsible for comprehensive regulatory oversight of approximately 100 broker-dealers. Mr. Pereira earned a Master's of Business Administration from St. John's University and obtained his undergraduate degree in economics from the State University of New York, Albany. I would like you to join me in a round of applause in a warm welcome to Mr. Pereira. And now I would like to ask Professor Larry Souza to come on stage and introduce one of our distinguished speakers tonight.
Good evening, everybody. I hope I can do this without crying. My name is Dr. Lawrence Souza. I'm an adjunct professor here at St. Mary's. I was brought here 4 years ago to link the business community with the academic community. And I think this is the program that basically does that. I have a distinct honor to introduce Russell. When I met Russell almost 10 years ago, he worked as an intern at Global Real Analytics for our firm. And upon graduation, we hired him. And I was working on a project to develop the first series of transaction-based real estate indexes that had never really been done before. And when Russell came on, he was so amazing that I decided that I would make him my operations manager. Were you like 21 at the time? And you just graduated. Literally, I'd been working on the project for about 6 to 9 months. Within 3 months, we had developed the product and we had started launching it. Without Russell's leadership and organizational skills and ability to oversee multiple data analysts and data managers and work with the as a liaison between the programming team, we could have never gotten the products developed and launched at that time. Your contribution, Russell, is incredible because it allowed me to go on and get my doctorate degree. The work we did became the basis of my dissertation, and I published it in 2014 and got the job here in 2015. So I owe you a tremendous amount of gratitude. So I'd like to introduce Russell Martin. Russell Martin is a portfolio manager at City National Roachdale. He's also an alumnus of St. Mary's, where he got his master's degree in financial analysis and investment management. Mr. Martin joined City National Roachdale in 2014. He works with each client's advisor to develop a customized portfolio based on the client's investment objective, time horizon, income needs, and risk tolerance. He is responsible for the investment strategy implementation and monitoring of private client portfolios, as well as the direct relationship management. He began his career as the real estate analyst at Charles Schwab Investment Management. He worked in a variety of roles at Schwab, including investment research, fund administration, portfolio management, and relationship management. Additionally, Mr. Martin spent time working for shareholder representative services, assisting venture capital clients with private sales transactions. Mr. Martin earned his BS in finance from Cal Poly here in California, San Luis Obispo, as well as his MS in financial analysis and investment management from St. Mary's. We highly encouraged, when we were at Schwab, we highly encouraged Russell to get his MS in finance. He said, I want to get my MS in finance. He decided to get it here at St. Mary's, which is amazing. Where he graduated is valedictorian, congratulations. He holds a Chartered Financial Analyst designation and a Certified Financial Planner designation. Mr. Martin is a proud father of 4 children, and during his off time can be found coaching a variety of youth sports. He is also a competitive golfer, participating in amateur tournaments hosted by the National California Golf Association. It is my extreme pleasure to introduce to you tonight Russell Martin.
So, I think I'm going to start it off here. because it is a passion of ours to share with you our experiences. And when Dr. Souza called me up and said, would I be interested in speaking to the students at St. Mary's College, there was lots of different links to my family, friends, co-workers, alumni, and current students. So I said, undoubtedly I'd like to do that. The first person I thought of, to tell you the truth, is an example center, and you're going to hear about that tonight, was Russ Martin to ask to join me in doing this presentation. So what we planned on doing and found the best way to help have you invest in your future is hear a little bit about ours, and then tell you a little bit about the field that we're in, and the values it provides, and the path that you could possibly be on. Okay? So we're going to do it in 3 steps. First, we're going to tell you a little bit more personally about us, right? So you understand where we come from, kind of when we were in your seats, what we were going through at that time. Kind of setting the stage for telling our story. Then we're going to tell you a little bit about our story. And Dr. Souza kindly introduced it a bit already. You understood the work that Russell did with Global Real Analytics, with Dr. Souza. And then ultimately we're coming out to Schwab together and having the fortunate pleasure to work with Dr. Souza for a number of years, right? And then how that progresses, right? It's a great story. I've told it a number of times. Russell's told it differently. I haven't really heard his version many times, and he hasn't heard mine. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. And last but not least, talk about our industry, right? What drives our passion for what we do, right? The path that we were on. Because this isn't a straight path. Life is not a straight path. There's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes, right? And taking the right approach and attitude towards it. We hope that coming away from that, you guys will learn that, hey, there are great opportunities out there, there's ways to do this, and you'll get something out of this and take away with you regarding the asset and wealth management industry, as well as any other industry you decide to pursue. So we're going to start with Russell telling you a little bit more about himself.
Thanks, George. Am I on here?
Push the button on the bottom. There.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, I'll just tell you guys a little bit about myself, and it really starts with the story of being a Bay Area native here, born and raised. Both of my folks were successful salespeople for Xerox Corporation, and I like to joke that I inherited a little bit of the gift of the gab and being able to rub elbows and shake hands with people as a result of that. And one of the things you're going to hear from me tonight is the importance of relationships in my career, in my life, and how there's a lot of emphasis placed on doing well and achieving at school, and that's certainly very important. But it's really only the beginning. It's what you do from there as far as fostering relationships, having a personal brand, and expanding your kind of circle of influence and the team of people you have supporting you that are really going to make a difference from where you go. My interaction with finance really began as a young kid. We did very well as a family, and we were never wanting for anything, but we ran into some trouble when I was about 8. And both of my parents, working for the same company, they were laid off 4 months apart from one another. And so all of a sudden we went from having a very successful, high-income financial life, I grew up out in Danville, to where we were really scrambling, and mom and dad were really having to grit and bite down on their mouthpiece, if you will, to make sure that they could continue to provide a nice family for my sister and myself growing up. And this really left a scar on me because I saw how traumatic it was for them to have to start their lives over financially. I saw what a process it was for them to rebuild their financial health. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but as I got off to college, initially I thought I was going to pursue a political science degree and go off to law school. My mom would tell you that I was quite the precocious young kid and very articulate / argumentative, and so that had the makings of a good litigation attorney. But as I got there, I realized that a political science degree really wasn't doing it for me, and I didn't have the passion for it the way that I expected to. And I was still carrying a lot of these lingering, I'll call it baggage even, from my childhood and that experience with money. And so that was when I decided to pursue a business degree, and specifically to focus on finance, because I wanted to learn more about money, about how it worked, about how to get it and keep it, and help to build a successful financial future for myself. And in hindsight, I realized that I wanted to become the financial advisor and the trusted investment expert that my family never had. And so I operate from a real place of intrinsic joy and satisfaction when I see that I can now, in my job, have an impact on people's lives and create a good future for themselves. I grew up playing a lot of sports, and so that competitive edge certainly helps in any type of business, and we can all find something in our background that will help with that. But really for me, it's a story of my family and my background that initiated that interest in finance, and it really has blossomed nicely from there. George?
Thank you, Russell. Okay, I'm going to, as I talk about my career, I started out as an immigrant. I was born in Portugal. My parents came here when I was 2 years old. Right? So first generation, my parents had a 3rd and 4th grade education. They were farmers in Portugal coming to the United States to provide their kids with a better life. It's some tenets that they bestowed on us from early age, right? Work hard, learn at all times, and you can go anywhere you want, right? Keep that effort. That work ethic is the most valuable asset that I've ever had and I possess today, right? The goal of, you don't have to come from, a aristocratic family. Again, 3rd and 4th grade education, they knew at that point that learning was the key. Growing was the key. I was the first person to graduate college in my family. So, very important to me. I'm a learner today as we do personality traits, right? My #1 personality trait, when you start going and getting these things measured, is a learner, right? I'm actively always pursuing growth, right? As an individual, helping myself and my family. I've got 3 beautiful children, been married for 31 years, very proud of all of them. Hopefully I bestowed some of that learner and work ethic on them as well, right? One is actually the St. Mary's alumni, graduated last year from St. Mary's College. Extremely proud of that fact. Proud of the opportunity for him to come to this school and leave with a great education, right? He's leveraging that in his career in the payroll processing world at ADP right now. So really ecstatic about that, okay? We're here today to tell you there's going to be multiple paths to this, right? My path wasn't the normal path. I don't know how many immigrants are in the room, first time, right? Okay, no advantages here, right? You come here, you work hard, and it's the land of opportunity. I'm living proof of that, right? Great opportunities out there, and we're here to talk a little bit about taking advantage of those opportunities that you have, because you have plenty of them out there. It's going to be a really exciting time for you to walk off this campus and the opportunities that will be presented. As we tell our story together, you'll hear a little bit about how that opportunity was taken advantage of, right, in the midst of Russ Martin and my interactions going forward. So thank you, and I look forward to any of the comments at the end as well and questions. Let's start with our story, okay? So Global Real Analytics, the company that Larry was running the index business for, also had an asset management business. They were managing real estate portfolios. Schwab Investment Management was looking to build a real estate fund. Right? How are we going to do that? We don't have the individuals on our organization with that background. Clearly, if you want to start managing assets for people in that space, you need some experience, you need some relative value that you can provide immediately. We looked into the San Francisco arena and said, where can we find that? Came across Global Real Analytics. Liked the company overall. Said that at the end of the day, we knew some people in the business. One of them knew Chuck. Connected the two of us, right? We pursued it and ended up purchasing the business of Global Real Analytics at the time. Now, the way we planned on having this go is, let's talk a little bit about the acquisition from my perspective. So we went out and found a need. We had a need for our business to help us grow, right? That fund is around a $350 million fund right now, so almost 10 years later. And very successful over the years. Okay, at that time, though, Russell was working with Global Real Analytics, and he just went through his first job in the turmoil of an acquisition. Why don't you share some things that you were feeling?
Yeah, so I had graduated from Cal Poly in 2006 and had the fortune of doing an internship with Global Real Analytics between my junior and senior years. And this is where relationships come in again. So a family friend of ours that we knew, my father's a Vietnam veteran, and through the veterans group that he was a member of, We knew that a particular gentleman in that group was the director of research for Global Real Analytics at the time, and I expressed my interest to him in learning more about the finance industry. And one of the things you'll hear from me is that one of the most powerful tools that I think you guys can take advantage of is the informational interview. Sitting down with somebody who is in a job that you may be interested to learn more about and asking them, what do they do? How did they get there? What has helped them to be successful? And where are they going? What are their future goals? And so I sat down with this gentleman and did that, and by the time it was over, I didn't come in at the beginning and say, may I have an internship, please? I started by showing a sincere interest in what he was doing, what the business was about. And that demonstrated a level of maturity for a younger person, right? We all have the end goal of wanting to get a job or having employment, but it ended up resulting in this internship for me, and so I was able to come back and get hired just mere months before the acquisition was closing. And so that was, I guess, their middle of 2006, and we became official Schwab employees January 1 of 2007.
Exactly. Then we go from there. So Schwab at that time, I was the CFO of the funds, basically putting together, we had 100 different mutual funds. We managed probably close to $180 billion in assets at the time. We were looking now to grow and build a real estate fund. So the piece that fit into the puzzle that in our plan were the portfolio managers. But there was this indexing business that was with the business that we also liked, and it had great potential. But it wasn't really core to our business. So we kept the indexing business and ran it for about 2 years successfully. And at some point in time decided, well, you know what, as we look at and go through business cycles around making sure you only do what's core to your business versus anything that's affiliated but not perfectly core, looking to see if we can tailor it and sell it to another entity that may be able to purchase it because it's core in their business, right? And as we looked at that, we said, okay, the indexing part of the business isn't something we want to continue long-term, and decided we're going to put it up for sale. Okay? So now that's a tough time. As soon as Larry or Dr. Souza and Russell and the other members of that business hear that that business is up for sale, they know at some point that business is likely to get moved on to another owner. And who knows if that new ownership is going to treat them the same way Schwab's treating them, etc. It just means change. And anytime there's change, there's risk, and you're measuring what that's for. The first time I met Russell in an in-depth way was at one of those meetings. So we were looking to sell the business to Standard & Poor's. They came into the organization, and clearly I was part of the due diligence team that was presenting it to them. So Dr. Souza led it off in talking about the index business from the highest end side and running that business. And then when it came down to somebody, Dr. Souza said, okay, well, who's going to explain the details, right? How this process works, how the accumulation of data works, how do we get it out to people, etc. He chose one of the youngest members on the staff, Russ Martin, who at the time looked like he was still could be in middle school.
Take your kid to work day, right?
Exactly. At the end of the day, he presented, and it overwhelmed me, to tell you the truth. I was just blown away at his ability to explain to some senior individuals looking to purchase this part of our business, how the operation work in a concise, clear, well-spoken, well-articulated, keys to the business success, why they've been successful, how they built it, etc. Right? Those types of skills. And I was awestruck at the time. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive for somebody who's just been here for a couple years, right? In that type of situation to deliver that type of message, right?
And George, if I may here, because I appreciate that very much, and this is something you guys all need to think about here, right? You are going to have different opportunities present themselves to you where you'll have opportunities to shine and to show what you can do. And when I was invited to have a seat at that table, I didn't doubt and question, oh, am I good enough? What are people going to think about me? When you have an opportunity like that, when you have a seat at the table, you have to know and tell yourself, I'm here because I belong here. I'm here because I've earned the right to be here. And give yourself permission to shine in those moments. You don't want to cower by saying, gosh, George is CFO of a huge organization. Dr. Souza is so accomplished in his career and everything that he's done. Who am I to be sitting here at the table? So I encourage you all in those moments that may come in totally backhanded ways, right? This business is getting wound down that I've poured myself into with Dr. Souza for a couple of years. You know, that's not exactly the opportunity I thought I was going to have to impress the CFO of the organization, right? And yet you take any of those opportunities as they come and know that when you have a seat at the table, you're sitting there because you belong there, and give yourself permission to shine and do well.
Such a great point. And again, so as we thought about this, we wanted to take you through the ups and downs. This is one of the downs, right? So the sale to Standard & Poor's didn't go through. We ended up winding down the business. Now, that meant that the group, you know, Dr. Souza, Russ, and others were now, you know, basically leaving Schwab. We took care of all employees that go through that process. Hopefully, fairly. You guys felt that way because that's.
I'm still waiting for my last check, George.
That's the way. That's just life. That happens, right? And this is what it's all
And
about.
to put it in perspective here, so this is now end of 2008. So any students of the market here, what was going on in 2008? Right, yeah. So 2008 was a heck of a year for me. I got married in August. I graduated from the master's program here at St. Mary's in September. I got fantastic news from George about my career prospects in November. And I found out that we were pregnant with our first child in December.
Talk about a little pressure.
That was not comfortable Sunday dinner conversations with my father-in-law. But again, when you have those times of adversity, right, you can either wallow in them or you can look for what's the opportunity. How can I still shine? What is my personal brand? What is the process that I go through every day? How am I going to carry myself and represent myself? And you want to behave in ways, and this is one of the key things that my mother always taught me was, you want to behave in ways always that are going to offer you choices. So I had a choice. I could have either complained to George. We had a contractual agreement with Standard & Poor's for 3 years to publish these indexes, and we should have our jobs. Or I can say, George, I love this company. How can I help? How can I continue to be a part of this?
And all the way through the transaction, again, behaviors, you know, meant a ton, right? The execution, it was a tough time in the market, credit crisis, etc. And one of the things I told Russell, I said, listen, let's stay in touch. You know, I'd love to be able to continue to hire you, and as well as some of the others in the organization, keep them on. We just couldn't, right? So we parted ways, agreed to stay in touch. He made his mark on my memory, right? He's made an impact on our business. His behaviors, he knew as soon as I had an opportunity, I was going to find it for him, right? And sure enough, that opportunity happened a year later. Now, it wasn't an opportunity in the role that he would say is his dream role, right? It was, hey, I've got an opportunity for you. I think you can add a lot of value in our company, okay? But it's in a back office type role. I'm going to ask you to trust me, come in, work your tail off for a year and a half, 2 years, and set your path that you want to set, right?
A couple of things I want to add before we get too much farther in the story. So I've got a pregnant wife, I'm married, now I've got a life that I need to provide for, and I needed to get back on my feet. And yeah, you know, I had a little severance that was able to carry us through, so we weren't, you know, totally down and out, but I knew I needed to get on my horse and figure out what came next. And wouldn't you know it, that the gentleman who I sat next to in my master's program cohort had gone to work for the firm you heard about in my introduction called Shareholder Representative Services. And so when this gentleman found out what had been going on with me and that I was interested in finding a place to contribute, he found a home for me there at the firm and a place to operate. So you may not know it, but the people sitting next to you right now may end up being the very people who are going to unlock doors or open opportunities or make introductions or provide a chance for you guys to be successful and roll. And so, again, it's all about how you carry yourself, the relationships you build, the genuine interest you show in other people, that branding that you have. And so St. Mary's, again, had such a near and dear place in my life, not only elevating me from my credentials and my ability to achieve some of the professional certifications, helping me going into the CFA program, but it was also a gentleman there who was able to help keep me fully employed there and give me an opportunity to transition through one of the toughest job markets and economies that we've seen in the last 100 years.
And it was great to see that, and clearly we knew he'd land on his feet, and it was great to have him back when he joined us again. Now, this was the epitome of when we signed Russell on. Again, it was a custody operations function, and there's a tremendous amount of value in understanding that part of the business, okay? When I'd asked Russell to come on board, I said, hey, I'm expecting you to do one of two things. I'm expecting you to come in, work as hard as you can, learn this business, but more importantly, make the people around you better, right? And that's what he did, right? He took on the job and responsibility, grew it. It made that entire team better. Now, he's the most junior person on that team. And there were some seasoned people, 10, 15 years on that team. He made them better. They saw the energy he brought. They saw his willingness to learn, willingness to question, willingness to drive change, right? They saw all that. Guess what? Everybody else started thinking the same way, right? Those types of behaviors, that's what I'm looking for in almost every junior hire that we look at. You know, how brave are they? How much courage do they have to push the status quo, right? And not be afraid to raise their hand in a room. If they don't know, if they understand the question might be dumb, but guess what? They need to know because they don't understand the explanation that somebody's given to them, right? Don't be afraid. Have the courage to do that. A year and a half later, Russ, you know, an opportunity opens up. He's done a tremendous job for us. His boss at the time was one of my direct reports said, hey, Russ is looking to post for another position. Are you okay with that? And you know, my agreement with his boss was 2 years, but I said, you know, how's he helped your group? He said he's helped it tremendously. Let him go. Right? Let him post for it, and if he gets the job, great.
And it wasn't just that I posted for this job, it was an associate portfolio manager job, which was initially my goal on this real estate fund when I came to school at St. Mary's to get my master's and to pursue the CFA credential. And Dr. Souza was instrumental in helping me come up with that future vision and plan. We set up a 5-year plan. And as those of you who know Dr. Souza well will attest, this was an extremely thorough 5-year plan, as nothing will pass snuff with Dr. Souza without being that way. And so I laid out a big case of, all right, I'm going to go to this program, I'm going to learn the details that I want to have this foundation to launch into the CFA program, and I'm going to take 3 years then to finish the CFA, and at the end of this 5 years, you know, 2 years for grad school, 3 years for CFA, I'm going to go in to be an associate PM on this team. So I had this vision the whole time, but then clearly got derailed, right? And so when George gave me the opportunity to come back, it wasn't just that I came into my job and learned everything I could about custody and fund accounting and securities lending and lines of credit for mutual funds and ETFs, which I didn't even know existed before. But I also was taking the opportunity to get to know other parts of the business. And this is something I highly encourage all of you to do once you get out into the workforce, is don't just show up for your job and do your job well. But take the time to get to know people who are operating in other parts of the company, and maybe in other roles that you aspire to in your own future. And so I would send the emails that I mentioned earlier to try to set up those informational interviews. And I must have emailed everybody on the trading floor, the fixed income PMs, the money market PMs, the equity PMs, and all of them were kind of looking at each other like, did you just get the same email from Russ that I got yesterday and that this guy's going to get tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera? And so that was my reputation, was that I was a learner and that I did work hard and I was curious and I was ambitious and I wasn't able to set myself apart just by crushing it in the job that I was sitting in my chair, in my lane. But it was by building that brand outside of that role, by asking questions from people and trying to learn more what they did. And so when I posted for this job, these people already knew who I was. They were already comfortable with what I was trying to do and what my ambitions were. And my reputation with George and on his team spoke for itself. So don't wait for that opportunity to come to start preparing yourself for it. You can do that work in advance by building that network of people and learning from those that have come before you.
I would say Russ, undoubtedly, in my 32 years of being in this business, is the best networker and relationship builder I've seen, bar none. Right? I mean, I think his skills there are great. That's why I wanted him up on the stage to help you understand that it's not just, it doesn't take, you know, and he was the valedictorian in his master's program, congratulations, but it doesn't take the valedictorian. It's not a skill that you only have through being the smartest person in the room. That skill is one that you work on, and anyone can build it. Right? There's a book out there called Coffee, Lunch, Coffee. If you want some great insight as to, you know, a starting point for it, but it is a skill that's tremendously impactful. Right? Understanding the environment you're in, if you want to get ahead, you know, networking is such a key part because it helps build those relationships that makes your world larger, and the success he's had. But guess what? We went through a situation where, and this is what we also want to share, changes happen. different things happen in your life and career. Russ, in our eyes, landed in his perfect role, right? Assistant portfolio manager on his track. He's got a great money going forward. He's going to affect a lot of people's wealth broadly, a hugely satisfying and rewarding role, one of the preeminent roles in our business. And sure enough, I get a call maybe a year and a half, 2 years tops later. Hey, Russ has decided to leave asset management, our business, and work in the wealth management or day-to-day with clients every day. And I'm like, okay, what's happening? I mean, what did I miss here?
So, spending a couple of years in the portfolio management role that I was in, I was on a passive team. You guys have heard all passive investing versus active investing, right? So we were running the index mutual funds and ETFs. And this was very exciting for me initially. It was a goal that I had had for myself, something I really aspired to. And I mastered that process. I really learned more about how benchmark indexes are constructed than anybody in this room would ever care to know. All the little nuances, and it was great. It was exciting. We were trading at that time over $20 billion in multiple markets around the world, trading multiple currencies around the world. I mean, it was very cool and novel and exciting to finally have been there and achieve that goal of being on the trading desk and being a part of the team that was running this $20+ billion. But as you've heard a theme of my career development, it's relationships. It's being with people and coming back again to my intrinsic reason for being in this business, right, which is helping people. And while I could have continued to do that through the role on the passive equity team, it was going to involve me being behind the computers for the next 30 or 40 years. And that's an awesome career track. Would have been very lucrative, high profile. A lot of people would really enjoy that work, and I have the technical ability to do that. But it wasn't fulfilling for what I was really starting to learn about my personality, which is that I really enjoy getting to know people, getting to understand them, what their goals and aspirations are, what their fears are, what their kids like to do, what their hobbies are. And I realized that I wanted to have more of those client relationships in my day-to-day work. And a piece of advice that I would offer is, for those of you who are considering going into the relationship or sales side of the world, don't be afraid to spend a couple years in a technical role or learning different technical parts of the business, because it is an awesome foundation upon which to launch into the relationship side of the business. It affords me, I think, more credibility to be able to speak about having managed money at the institutional level. And when I sit across the table from a husband and wife or a family who have, they're asking questions about what they should do with their life savings, right? Their trusted nest egg. That afforded me, I think, a little bit more cred, if you will, to really offer my advice and guidance. And so again, through the network that I had built at Charles Schwab, I had been running the employee golf club for a number of years and got to meet people from different parts of the business. And that's another area. Get involved with the employee groups that are going to be at wherever you end up landing. Or if they don't exist, create them, right? The finance club didn't exist at one point. Somebody decided to start it. Well, if you don't see a group that you want to be a part of out there, you be the one to start it. Invite people in, and through that golf club, I was able to meet people in our branch in downtown San Francisco, who then afforded me the opportunity to move over to the wealth management side of the business.
So he clearly stayed at Schwab for a couple of years, but then he left and his career ended.
After George was done beating me for leaving the asset management side of the business. No, I only kid.
So again, your path isn't going to be direct, right? I remember when I first job out of school, I joined a great company, Northwestern Mutual Life, selling insurance, right? Selling life insurance directly. And unbelievable organization, love it to this day, right? And in the first 6 months, I had a great experience. I did extremely well, etc. Okay, but 6 months to the day afterwards, I said, hey, I'm going to look back on my time and say, evaluate where I am, where I progress from there. And tell you the truth, in the morning as I woke up every day at that point, I couldn't stand talking about death. I'm a positive person overall, and I didn't like the fact when I walked into the room that that was, you know, the next conversation. And I couldn't see myself doing it for an extended period of time. So, you know, at that point in time, I went to my boss in the group and said, hey, we're going to have to transition here. I just can't do it, right? And to tell you the truth, I would, literally a month before that, I wouldn't have made the same decision. I would have told you to this day, this is a great job, great company, I love what I do. It delivers a lot of value and changes people's lives, and I still believe it, right? I wouldn't have sold it if I didn't, right? Because it's just not in my core to do that, right, from an ethical standpoint. And if folks are working in Northwestern Mutual Life coming out of this program, I wish you extremely well, because it's a rewarding career, it can be very satisfying long term. It just wasn't a fit for me. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do. Right? I ended up down on Wall Street in a regulatory job at the time. You can imagine it was 1986 at that time. I ended up at the NASDAQ that had a regulatory arm, a big training class, new college recruits coming in. A friend of mine who again, I'd known from school and graduated with, told me about the opportunities. I applied for it, got the job. Literally about a year later, the market crashed. So we're in this class of 22 trainees in that year. Market crashes. Each one of us are now going into organizations, broker-dealers that are managing a lot of money and closing down organizations, literally changing the face of the business itself at that time, dealing with the Wolf of Wall Street type of situations across the board on trading desks left and right. You know, the one thing that'll ferret out bad business practices is a huge stock market drop or a recession. Right? That'll clearly, you know, weed out the ones that can't withstand the good business model. Right? Those are things that happen. I was on the forefront and learning that business. It was that exercise that put me on the spotlight as a 2 years out of school, you know, individual worker there, that I all of a sudden have to learn and deal with real life traumatized situations and understanding whether a business should stay open or close and make those recommendations. Those are the types of things, the challenges that you're faced with, those opportunities at key moments that decide whether or not you step up and embrace it, right, and do the best you can. I'm sure if I look back on my decisions back then, they were probably misinformed, not fully informed, but guess what? They were my decisions, and literally it was the best I knew how to do at the time. And once you give it your best, that's the change maker. It's propelled me into a 30-year career in this business in different roles across the board. I can say that I literally sat on these 5 different career paths in my career. Now as the Chief Operating Officer here at Charles Schwab Investment Management. I was the CFO for a while. I headed up a large regulatory group. I was the Director of Regulatory Reporting for an organization, and literally managed auditors for an extended period of time, a 3-year period of time. So these are things that you're going to come across, and opportunities you're going to come across. I'd ask you got to find your passion, what values you have, and what you deliver and contribute to an organization, and that really matters. And guess what? You're not going to know your passion coming out of this school. Okay? Your passion gets built out over time, and it changes. So don't be afraid to try things. Okay? I did not regret for a minute the 6 months I spent at Northwestern Mutual Life. It actually helped me learn about myself. It helped my path. Right? Because I knew I could sell. I just did it for 6 months, cold calling every day, dealing with the rejection. That's a tough thing to do. I'm not sure, after going through that, right, that piece wasn't the piece that really bothered me, because the adrenaline you get from a successful stint there kind of carries you through all the negativity, right, of getting rejected or hung up on. So you can get through that and can continue building. What I would say is, you're going to end up on multiple different paths. Make sure you embrace whatever path you're on, do your best, and then veer from there, right, to help you get to that next level path. Okay, so Russell then goes on to Rockdale Securities, small organization, we don't care much about it, we're not going to talk about it. Any comments you want to make on your Rockdale career?
No, I mean, it's been great. It really, I got to a point in my career where I saw the opportunity to be a little bit bigger fish in a smaller pond, if you will. And it's no knock to working for a larger organization. You can have great careers there and ascend. And many times there are more opportunities or more tree branches that you can explore. But I was contacted by a recruiter for City National Rockdale who was looking for a client-facing portfolio manager who had the graduate degree, who had the CFA credential, who had some of that institutional background, and really it fit nicely with kind of being in more of that boutique, smaller type of shop. We manage a measly 40 million, George, about a tenth the size of Charles Schwab Investment Management, and it's been a great run. I've been there for 5 years now, and I'm now starting to be in a position where, just like George was a champion for me in my career, and this is something important to recognize, when you find people like George or like Dr. Souza who are champions for you, really take advantage of that. Not take advantage in the way that you're going to be a taker, but take advantage by listening to what they have to say, finding time to ask questions. You know, I've sat down with George multiple times over cups of coffee. I've asked him for advice. He asked me the other day what one of my regrets was. It's that I didn't ask him more advice when I had the opportunity to be around him daily. And so when you find people that are going to support you in your career, to support you in your advancement, that matters a lot. And so stay in touch with those people, even if you move on to other companies or other roles within the organization. I think that's huge. And now I'm in a role where I have the ability to start being a champion for the analysts and the associate portfolio managers that work on my team. And I take it very seriously to challenge them, to ask them, what is it that you want? What do you aspire to? Why are you getting up and coming to work every day? Thinking about them not as the function that they play on my team, but as the human being that they are and what they're trying to accomplish in their life. And that's something that I can give Dr. Souza a lot of credit to, is that he really wanted to know what was important to me. I didn't say I wanted to become the world's best indexer. I said I wanted to be a portfolio manager, right? And so he was fully supportive of helping me along that path, as was George. And even as I've decided to move to a different part of the business from where George was, or move to a different firm, I know that because of the time I've invested and the sincere interest I've shown in George, that I could always call him and ask for his advice or for his guidance. And I like to think about this. Another concept that my mom imparted upon me was have a personal board of directors. Right? Who are the people that you look to for advice? 5 people, 8 people, genuine, authentic relationships, right? To where when you have big life decisions coming up, you've put in the time to build the relationships with people so that you can call on them to be a mirror or to guide you when you have those challenging decisions or pivot points in your career. So I would encourage you all to be on the mentee side of things here, but also tuck away in the back of your heads, 5 years, 10 years from now, as you become more seasoned, as you grow in your careers, you're going to have the opportunity to do the same for those that come behind you. And that's how this whole kind of world keeps turning on itself, is that we help those beneath us to grow and to achieve what they want. They can help others to grow and achieve what they want. And it sounds like a cheesy thing, but George and I were talking earlier as we were prepping for this, that being an optimist, trying to make the world a better place, trying to aspire to grow, whether it's opportunities for women or for minorities or whatever it might be. We all need to do our part to not only allow ourselves to be mentored and look for those champions, but then have it in our minds that we are going to grow into being champions and mentors and coaches for people ourselves in our careers.
A 10-year alumni from St. Mary's Master's Program, well said, way to give back. Congratulations. Giving back is key. So we're going to move on to our final topic tonight. So we talked a little bit about our backgrounds. We just went through our story, at least the highlights of it, or some of the highlights. There are a lot of other stories about Russell kicking my butt in golf and just about most other sports, but you know, even though he's small, he packs a big punch, that's for sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about asset and wealth management, okay? And what it's like a career in asset and wealth management. And I'll start, you know, our business is one that, you know, I was sitting at an executive leadership team meeting not too long ago, and our business is built on trust. Now, unfortunately, when there was a survey done, I can't remember the source of the survey, I wish I did, but there was a survey done and it was quoted around the most trusted or distrusted industries out there. Clearly, used car salesmen were in the lowest category of mistrusted or distrusted, you know, basically professions. Okay, number 2 and number 3 was financial service salespeople, right? So from a trust standpoint, we're selling trust. We're, you know, literally trying to manage people's money to achieve their career goals. From a trust standpoint, actuality, we're seeing it, you know, not in a great light. Which, to tell you the truth, is a sad state, and it's a sad state because of the abuses that have happened in the past in our industry. Unfortunately, those get the highlights, the success stories of wealth that's attained, that colleges are tuitions are paid for, that homes are bought, that retirements are funded by. You don't hear much about that. Those are the things that happen day to day, but you know what, they're not going to make the news. But the first time you hear another Wolf of Wall Street story, or another story of a Ponzi scheme being successful and people losing their shirt, that's going to be all over the news. So unfortunately, it taints our business in a bad way. What I'm here to tell you is that organizations like Schwab, City National, Rockdale are incredible organizations that have really delivered a lot of value to people in achieving their lifetime goals and providing educations, homes, retirements, financial well-being for many, many folks. It's actually an incredibly rewarding profession. And you can enter this profession in many different schemes, right? There's many different roles for folks. It's not just the person managing assets. In my career, I have not managed, I have overseen teams that have managed people's assets. I haven't managed money directly in my career. I have a hard time, as I was telling somebody as we were networking, I'm good at helping manage other people's money. I'm not good at managing my own money. I don't spend enough time doing it, right? Because I spend so much time managing other people's money through our funds and our business that I don't pay attention to my individual resources, that I try to set up a passive structure and get great advisors that help me do that, right? I hire somebody to help manage my money, right? Even though I'm managing billions of dollars, my teams are managing $1 billion of assets. I need help managing my personal finances. I pay somebody to do that, right? Outside of our organization, understands it all, and can help deliver that value, right? That's an incredibly important thing. One of the topics that we talked about here is understanding the opportunities in asset and wealth management that are out there, that are a little bit hidden and you might not hear about. I was actually talking to a great friend and a student here in the audience, Cameron Gubera, who I coached in lacrosse growing up and is a great friend of my daughter. She was telling me about a major here at St. Mary's, is in data analytics. We used to be known in my day as statistics, and at the time I remember seeing people graduate with statistics degree, and people say, what are you going to be a math major in actuary sciences? What are you going to do with a statistics degree? Well, right now as a business, I'm looking for data analytics majors. I'm looking for people with experience in data analytics. I'm looking for anyone that can help us take the data we have and make better information out of it. Right now, that's probably one of the hottest fields in our industry. And it's not only in the financial services industry, it's in almost every industry, from fintech to consumer products, et cetera. Right? When I was growing up, statistics as a major would be you're really smart in math, but can you get out of your way and can you translate that into something? What is that going to be? Right? So it's kind of interesting to see how that evolves and changes over time. And we're really excited, to tell you the truth, about our data program internally at Schwab and the value we can provide. It's one of those hidden gems that are out there that is clearly being sourced and growing significantly. 5 years ago, we had 0 people on the data quality, data governance, and data stewardship teams in our organization. It was all managed by the business. Today, that's a group of 35 people on my team and over hundreds of people at the broader Schwab Corporation. Right? Just an area of growth that you might not know about today, but it's out there as a hidden gem with regards to opportunities, both for the financial service business, because it helps you make better decisions. The ultimate goal is taking data and leveraging it to make better decisions as a business for individuals, or making your business more profitable, more productive, more efficient.
George, maybe talk a little bit about people on that team and how they have a very strong technical base.
Yeah.
They have to be incredibly intelligent. Maybe they have computer science skills in addition to their math skills. But I bet that's not the best quality they have. So talk about their ability to interact with other parts of the business and to maybe have the communication and relationship skills to talk about very technical concepts and translate and speak to business leaders in a way that adds value for them.
It's an incredible thing to see, because I've seen people actually gravitate now, kind of seeing where the puck is moving and using a hockey analogy as opposed to where the puck is today, where it's expected to go. And our data, the original data analyst team were very quantitative oriented, math focused, etc. Right? That's grown now to, okay, as they've come together, and not only been asked to produce a lot of data for you, because that was their role in the past. Give me this information, put it together, put it in a way I can see it, make it visual, etc. Right? interpret this information. But now, especially with kind of what we call agile work efforts, right, which involves taking business technology and data individuals and putting them together on a team, now it's take the data and solve the problem for them. Get there as quickly as possible, as directly as possible. So that's brought a skill to that group that hadn't been there before, right? And you're seeing it in all parts of our business. You're seeing the evolution and growth of coders in our business, right? You'd be from using a program itself to develop the program on your own. How can you take steps out of a process and code, to be able to improve a process wherever you are? I've got a woman on my team. She puts in the effort and has the value of 3 people. And I was happy to recognize her that financially this year because of what she does. She's called our transformation specialist. She goes in, we pay her to go into teams of people, understand what they do, learn what they do, and then find ways of making them more efficient. Right? Because of her coding background, because of her computer science, because of her data analytics background, she has that ability. Right? And it's incredible to see. Right? She would normally be in an engineering role somewhere else, right, for a large company trying to work through problems, or a research role, etc. She comes into our organization, as a junior person with no understanding of the investment business, but great understanding of process and process efficiency, and comes in and is just a star. Flat out star, right? Couldn't promote her enough. She's pushing me on how much money I can pay her, if I can pay her enough, right? But just unbelievable talent, right? And again, doesn't have an investment management background, doesn't have a securities background, okay? But she adds value in a way that we need her to add value, and she makes everybody else better. So those are the types of opportunities in our business. Right?
So George, what I'm hearing you say here is that this technical base of the data analytics, the computer science, the math, that's the foundation upon which she's coming into the workplace. But what differentiates her is her ability to learn your unique business and to communicate and be in positive relation with each of those teams that you send her into. And so what I'm imparting upon all of you is having the technical skills is wonderful. But it's the human relation skills, it's the communication skills, it's the curiosity, it's the desire to learn, those things about your character that are really going to elevate you and separate you and differentiate you, right? Even the person who graduates top of their class, there's always going to be somebody smarter out there. If you're in a race to be the smartest person in the room, you're going to get into an ego contest that is not going to end well for you in your career. When you can find a way to ask questions, to identify the needs of your business leaders, and then to drive solutions forward and even to motivate teams and people to rally behind that, those are the things that are going to differentiate and separate you in your careers. So focus your time now while you're in school and the early years of your career on becoming a technical expert. Become a great coder. Become an excellent financial analyst or statistician or data analyst. But don't ever forget that what's going to elevate you to higher levels in your career is your ability to have that communication and relationships and identify needs and ask questions so that you can then drive improvements in the business like George has just described.
Absolutely. It's something that we do all the time. So we take our best performer in a certain role and we basically take them out of that. So that person is the 5-person team, the star of that team. And we know that if we don't change what that person is doing, right, move them into a higher role with different challenges, they're going to leave. If you don't know enough about your people, then ensure that you want to keep those challenges going, grow their ambitions, continue feeding that. So you might be taking your best person on this team and ultimately weakening the team, but by moving him or her to a different team to continue growing in his career, or her career, and blossoming there. Right? So ultimately you got to sometimes take a step backwards to progress a whole organization, and that happens all the time. The opportunities I will talk about, we've got a couple minutes left here. I just had a couple of other opportunities that I see in the business. Russell, maybe you could add something as well on what you're seeing at City National Rockdale around where we're hiring. Schwab is going through a significant amount of growth over the last 5 years. We've gone from, actually probably, what year did you leave us?
That was 2012.
Okay. So 7 years now. When Russell left, there was about 12,000 employees in the company. Today, there are 19,000. Okay? A lot of that growth, technology, data, computer science, or computer programming, some offshore, some on. Okay? FCs or financial consultants are growing. Okay, but the other big areas are communications, marketing, all of our web services, right? People interact with Schwab via the web as a normal way. A lot of individuals have Schwab FCs, but we probably have 2,500 financial consultants. We have over 11 million accounts. So you do the math. You just can't satisfy and respond to 11 million clients with 2,500 financial consultants. So most of the people engage with us online. I'd encourage all of you. Schwab is one of the places where you can go online and learn a ton about financial services without even opening an account, right? Just understanding the business, understanding the research we put out there, and the information we provide. Okay? So learning it from the websites, our job link is a key one for individuals in this room, understanding that job link, right? Understanding the positions that are being put out there. I mentioned it earlier as I was just talking about being introduced to individuals and students in the room. Unfortunately, in San Francisco, because of the high cost of living, there's not a lot of entry-level jobs for Schwab in San Francisco. Every once in a while, one opens up and we get a flood of candidates, but unfortunately, it's such a high-cost city that we tend to have more senior men. It's our headquarters. We tend to have more senior leadership roles here. But there are always opportunities. I was telling Cameron, actually, that in Denver, we're growing on the data analytics team like no other. Right? I mean, if there's a location you would live in, and there's pretty good locations from Denver to Phoenix to Dallas, Texas, or Indianapolis, our major hubs, there's tons of opportunities, especially for entry-level students coming out of college. Right? Great opportunities there, so keep an eye on the website.
A lot of the similar themes that we're seeing in City National Rockdale. We are hiring a lot of people who are focused on building out our technology infrastructure. And so some of that is the computer science side of the finance world and coding our processes or investment logic and how we build portfolios. Some of that is on more like a Salesforce and Salesforce administrators and database administrators, right? We are also hiring a lot of process people. So I don't know if anybody in the room has heard of Six Sigma or getting your black belt in Six Sigma, right? So process, as Georgia talked about, that's a big thing right now. In our business, a lot of what's happening in financial services is trying to drive efficiencies in your business operations. And that takes really smart people who can automate things, and they automate those things by understanding what the steps of the process are and re-engineering them to happen in the most efficient way possible. So it's not just the traditional, in fact, I would argue, George, the jobs in fundamental stock picking and bond picking, those are harder and harder to come by. Really a lot more growth is in the kind of role that I have, where you are a client-facing person. Anybody want to take a guess at the average age of the financial advisors in the United States? Just go ahead and shout them out. Anybody? 45, 55, that's our winner right there, okay? That's pretty close to retirement, people, right? We have a lot of baby boomers in this country, okay? 10,000 a day, oh, come on. You're a millennial, George. No. So we got a lot of people who are getting into their retirement years, baby boomers, right? That's almost 80 million people in our country. 10,000 a day are turning age 65. And the average age of financial advisors out there is age 55. Who's going to help these baby boomers as they get into their aging years and to guide them in the shift of wealth to the next generation? It's not going to be the current financial advisor. Succession planning in the financial advisory business is a huge issue right now. And possibly one career path you might consider is finding an opportunity to partner with a more senior advisor who's looking to have a succession plan. So technology, data analytics, business process, efficiencies, but also those people who can have and thrive in managing and owning and building and growing client relationships. There are huge opportunities in financial services. It's not just the portfolio manager that you see when you turn on Jim Cramer on CNBC.
Great. Okay, we'll pause right now. We're going to go into our Q&A session. Thank you all very much.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. You provided insights for all of us tonight that were just so valuable. We appreciated you sharing your background, your history, as well as your professional insights. One of the things that you mentioned was the power of the informational interview and the need to ask a lot of questions. So now is your opportunity to ask questions, and I'm going to come down with the mic to give you all the opportunity to ask our guests this evening anything that's burning in your mind. They've talked a lot about learning and grit and perseverance and dealing with adversity, the flexibility that they've had to show in their own lives, doing your best, finding your passion. So now's your chance to ask them some of those nitty-gritty questions. Who has a question? Yes, wonderful. Stand up, introduce yourself, nice and loud, and speak to them.
First of all, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Austin Young. I'm actually a technical recruiter, so hearing what you're talking about is pretty interesting. Just kind of curious though, what impact do you see automation and artificial intelligence making on your industries?
Thank you. Automation, information.
Yeah, so great question, Austin. Thank you very much. So the question is about automation and artificial intelligence impacting our industries. I can tell you right now, one of the project teams that I sit on at work is to automate part of our training of client portfolios. Now, we're never going to get 100% automated. We build very customized portfolios. We don't run models at City National Rockdale, so different from sort of the robo-advisory type of niche that you guys might have heard of. But as far as running profit margin in our business and in trying to maximize the efficiency with which we do things, we have highly paid portfolio analysts who are clicking buttons in somewhat repetitive ways for a portion of the tasks that they do. And they're very capable people, highly credentialed, CFA charter holders. I really want them to be able to exercise their professional judgment rather than have them button clicking in certain processes in our portfolio management tool or Microsoft Excel or whatever. So we're definitely seeing that, again, from where I sit, it places all the more importance on those people's ability to show that they can grow into a client-facing role. It's about the relationships. I don't know if I've said that enough today. And so that's definitely an area where those more repetitive tasks where the logic is very clear-cut and consistent over a broad array of situations, we're absolutely adopting that into what we're doing. It's helping the firm to manage labor costs, and it's really placing a higher focus on the ability of those portfolio analysts to have interactions with our clients and financial advisors rather than the button smasher.
I'd say clearly from the technology side, we're looking at leveraging all of our technologies to make processes better and learn, grow, improve our decision making. The true meaning of artificial intelligence is a little bit harder to apply in our business. Clearly, I'd say if we were managing money more in a fundamental organization where you're looking at opportunities to invest for benefit of our clients, we're probably not doing as much there because we're more generally a passive shop, but that is going on in our industry pretty significantly. What we're doing is looking at things like, how do we make all of our processes simpler? So today, we trade $16 billion every day in our business. And there's still places in our business that wait for two people to connect to compare a transaction before it settles. So having two people on either side, one broker-dealer in our world, in our building, one in New York somewhere, Chicago, LA, right, waiting to connect would make a lot of sense to us. So we created and are leveraging what we call chatbots now, right, where you can wait for that chatbot to happen automatically, and as soon as that happens, instruct the transaction. So I don't have a person waiting by the phone for that to happen. We have somebody overseeing it. So those are the types of examples that we're executing or looking at to help improve our efficiency in our business through not a true AI, but a pseudo-AI type process. I'm looking at used innovation.
Excellent, thank you so much. Other questions? Jerry?
Thank you for being here. My name is Jerry, I'm a senior here in BizEd. So my question, obviously at this point in your careers, you met hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people, and 10, 15 years ago, you would have just had a big Rolodex. So my question is more about are there any tools or systems that you use to keep all these people organized, and what do you do to maintain those relationships? Because obviously you can't just call them up every couple of years and be like, hey, can I have a favor? You need to maintain some sort of relationship. Could you kind of speak to that a bit, please? Thank you.
Russell, you're the master of that. I'm not even try to keep up with your system.
So, I mean, what a fantastic question, right? And I might be a little old school in my answer to this, right? So, I mean, I turned 35 this year, so I'm technically a millennial, but my friends will joke with you that I'm the world's youngest old man. And so, I've really leveraged my growth of my relationships has been through personal connections. So if I have a good relationship with somebody, I might say, you know, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'd like to learn more about what we talked about today. Are there other people that you might be able to introduce me to that might be willing to have a similar conversation to this? And certainly you don't want your touch points to be only when you're calling to ask for something. In fact, this is a really important point for you guys to take home. When you guys are networking and you're building relationships, and you're trying to get out there and kind of build that support team around you, you want to do it by being of service to the other person. You are not going into it trying to get something out of it. Now, of course, we all have an agenda and things that we are driving toward. Of course we do, right? But you want to make a habit of asking people, how can I be of service to you? What can I do to be helpful for you? And the answer might be, hey, there's nothing right now. But as long as you're operating from that place, I think that's really good. New tools that have come out the last decade, you know, LinkedIn is obviously a big place for professional kind of touch points. And, you know, for me, that's sort of, I'm not in the business of sending invites out to be friends with people that I don't know. It's really more to confirm, hey, I've already had a conversation or connected with this person in a human way. And so then I'll kind of say, okay, check, I can put them in there and know that if I need to tap back into that, I can. And I will intentionally ignore invites from people who are folks that I've never met before, right? So it's not, you know, you want to have true relationships, not just, you know, followers, if you will, right? And so, you know, taking time for me to get to know them personally, if you can remember a birthday, if you can remember what their kids like to do, if you can remember a hobby that they have. You know, there'll be silly things. I'll send a random text message to somebody because the Cleveland Browns had a good year in football, and I know they're crazy about it. And that might be the one time I talk to that person over an 18-month period, right? But I think if you can find little personal nuggets and ways that you can have to touch and connect with people, you know, and try to really operate from a place of being of service rather than I need something from you. And I think that genuine interest in learning from people and the being of service, it naturally blossoms into you can call for those favors when you need.
Great insight. Thank you. Other questions? Great.
Thank you. I'm actually a professor here in the economics department, so hopefully I'm not going to take away any more time or questions from the students. But I was interested in what your opinion is on the following. There has been some research indicating that financial literacy is really low at about 63%. Actually, some research by Charles Schwab finding out that about 76% of the people in the 15 to 24 age group are thinking that their financial future is going to be better than it may be. They have a lot of student debt, and the savings rate overall has been decreasing in the U.S. So I guess the question is, what do you think about the importance of financial literacy, how we can improve it, especially for these younger students and generation kind of going into the future, thinking about their savings and how can they maybe address that? Thank you.
It's a great question. I do think there's been an under-focus on financial literacy broadly. And myself and the representatives of our company are trying to bring that to light in what we do. For some reason, over time, you know, financial management, budgeting, some of the basic things have gotten out of the curriculum in schools, right? And literally not focused on, leaving students with an understanding of general money management and financial matters, but not, you know, precise money management and how to plan. I would say everyone should really think long and hard. I mean, these discussions, I remember my daughter had a professor in high school that, you know, literally, she didn't like the class. The professor was a gung-ho professor, was incredible, and delivered such valuable topics, whether, you know, teaching her whether or not she should lease a car or buy a car, and how you calculate the difference and understanding. kind of real-life financial, helping you make real-life financial decisions and evaluate those. Budgeting, et cetera, building plans. You know, unfortunately, it's not happening as actively as we'd like it to. I do think student debt is a huge burden, and the cost of education continues to grow and evolve, and I think it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on outgoing students, as well as how do you sustain and grow your career in this environment. I do think that's a huge huge challenge overall for everyone. I would say I see some hope. I do think there is growing amounts of work being done in financial literacy, and I do think that hopefully will kick in hopefully this generation's age, but getting to a point where that savings and understanding effort becomes better. One of our jobs as an organization is to try to make complex topics simple, right? And we build technologies and processes to help our clients attain that understanding. So it's a challenge that we've taken on from a financial literacy standpoint, in educating as well as building tools to help people manage their money. And that's what I talk about. You don't even have to have an account at Schwab, and you can go onto our website and go through the financial literacy and research section and understand a little bit more about that. So we're trying to do our part, but we know it's a broad dilemma in the United States as well as other nations.
A great resource, thank you.
Yeah, I would add to that if I could quickly. The Money Matters program at Schwab is huge. For me personally, when I envision myself in retirement, I look forward to traveling and spending time with my wife and all of this, but one of the areas that I really want to get more involved with philanthropically is educating young children on the basics of finance. And leasing versus buying a car is one thing, but most people don't even know how to write a check. They don't understand how to evaluate the difference between different types of bank accounts. I mean, basic fundamentals here, and I think all of us ought to make a commitment that if we're interested in being a part of the financial services industry, that we ought to make it a part of our personal missions to find one person that you can help and go from there. But we all need to be a part of changing that culture in our country, and it's definitely a major problem that we need to address, no doubt about it.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your insights. I just noticed you guys both had a few career path changes throughout your career overall, and I was wondering how you developed your technical abilities throughout your time in the workforce.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think for me it started academically and trying to get everything that I could out of my school. And pursuing some credentials are good, but some of the advice I got, remember David Siopak on the PM team, and he was a CFA charter holder, and I said to him, hey, I'm interested in pursuing this credential to learn more. And he says, Russ, that's great. You're going to go and learn this information so that you can pass the test, and then you're going to forget 90% of it, and you're going to go figure out how it actually works in the real world. And so I think a lot of it is embracing what George talked about with one of his strengths and highest qualities, which is being a learner. And even if each job that you have does not end up being where you ascend vertically in your career, having the ability to pick up the experience and learn as much as you can in each role, in each view that you have of the business, it's going to surprise you when you look back 10 years, 20 years from now as to how each of these roles that may have felt disjointed or not connected or not necessarily linear, which George talked about how it's never linear in your career path. So I think it's really trying to ask questions, really develop and take pride in having a natural sense of curiosity. I pride myself in being an extensive note taker, right? So when I'm coming in new to a job, when I'm asking questions, when I'm getting up and running, I really try to be extensive in taking notes. And then again, being able to learn and talk to people in different parts of the company maybe that are outside of your main job function. That really can help round out your understanding of the business as a whole and how your role fits into the different parts of the business. So I would say, obviously crush it academically, that's really important. Look at some of the top professional designations that you can get, and just make a commitment to yourself and have it be a part of your identity that you are going to be a lifelong learner by way of asking questions, being interested in things outside of your immediate task or job function. And I think having that habit over time, you'll find you'll be surprised at how much you pick up and learn as you go along.
And I'll just add a quick thing on that. I do think what gives you the license to change, right, is what you bring to that job every day. There's not been a job that I don't walk into or out of where I'm saying to myself, this company's getting more, right, than I'm getting back from it. Right? I'm giving more and they're getting more than I'm getting back. Right? And it's got to be a fair balance, because I'm giving way more than they're giving back, and I'm not going to be there very long. But it gives you the license to be able to move to something else that is a preference, or the license for people to see that you're providing that value and opening doors for you for a different path that you may want to go on. I mean, that, if you're in a job where you don't feel like they're getting, you're giving more than they're getting back, then it becomes a challenge to see how far that can go, and those opportunities don't tend to open up as quickly.
I remember George talking about, when I was still on his team, that he said, listen, it's the company's job to provide an environment every day where you guys have opportunities to grow and learn and thrive, and you have the tools, and you're supported so that you can operate at your highest level. But he looked all of us straight in the eye and he said, but it's your job to walk off that elevator every day with an attitude where you're going to be contributing at a high level, giving your best effort, having an excellent attitude, and contributing in the best way that you can to the firm every day. And I appreciated that he took on the commitment as an executive in the firm to say, hey, look, we need to provide the platform for you. But he made it very clear that if you're not interested in coming and delivering the goods and being a contributor and being of service and having a great attitude about it, he said, go find a job somewhere else. I don't want you here. And I thought that was gutsy at the time. Everybody in the room kind of went, whoa, But that is really the fabric of what it's about, is that personal brand where you are going to deliver every day at a high level, and to know that that's all going to come back around to you in the end.
Yeah. Mary Beth, can I just close on it? Because I do think it's a great point. We go to work every day, and some of us work 50, 60, 40, whatever hours a week, right? But you spend a lot of your life doing what you do, right? Work-wise, earning a living, growing your business, and you want to be happy in that. It's way too much time to spend being in an unhappy situation. And I remember, because I say this to my teams probably once or twice a year, and I give them a personal invitation to leave, right? If they're not happy, and it's with all sincerity, sometimes really good performers will take you up on it, right? But it's, life is too short. They'll thank me later on. But life is too short to live it in an environment that you really don't like, not enjoy. Just way too short. So, providing that platform is a key thing, in delivering on it is even better.
Well, that's the perfect end note for us, so thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, most of all your personal stories, and your perspective to all of us tonight. The joy of learning and what you've shared with us, the need to ask questions so that we can be lifelong learners is really essential. It is interesting how life goes full circle, from student to teacher to mentor to student to teacher, and then back full circle again. So thank you so much. I really have enjoyed your discussion tonight, as I know everyone else has here. I'd like to turn it now back over to the Finance Club officers. Allie, come on up.
Thank you so much, George and Russell. You guys were absolutely amazing and really blew me away with all of your amazing advice. We have a little something to say thank you, and I'd like us all to sing a round of applause for these two. The incredible advice that you had to give us, and I wish I could sit here and listen to you talk for hours. But we'd like to invite everyone to come up to the stage and take a quick group photo together. So if you all want to stand up and come up here right in front of the stage, and we're just going to take a picture together. Everyone looks so great. I think we need a picture.
And as you gather up here, I do want to especially invite Dr. Souza up. We are so grateful for our wonderful colleague as the Gazette Program Director. I'm especially proud of my longtime friend and outstanding professor. So here's a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much.
you come up here.